The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and thanks for joining our webinar this morning regarding cybercriminals and their motivations and methods. My name is Shona Bradshaw. I'm the Marketing Manager for Bytes Security Partnerships, and I'm delighted to be joined today by John Wood, who is one of the Senior Engineers at Websense, to discuss the different motivations and methods of cybercriminals and how IT security teams can break the cybersecurity kill chain to defend against data loss and theft in their organisation. So just to give you a very brief...
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, John. To give you a little bit of an agenda for today's webinar, please do let me know if there's any problems on audio or screens throughout, and let us know if there's any that via the questions in the chat box. So I'll give a very brief introduction to Bytes. I will keep it brief, as many of you do know us already. Introduce John from Websense, and then John will take us through the bulk of the webinar, which is looking at common attack motivations of cybercriminals, defence weaknesses in IT security teams and organisations, a bit around the cybersecurity kill chain and what technologies can help in breaking the chain of events that lead to data theft, and we'll then do an interactive Q&A. So a little bit of housekeeping for the webinar. Lines for attendees are on mute throughout. However, we do welcome questions. Please do post them via the questions in the chat box, and we'll run an interactive Q&A at the end. For the purposes of today's webinar, we will stick to strategic discussions and technological discussions, so we won't be discussing any commercials. You are welcome to, if anything takes your fancy, or if there's anything that you do want to discuss that with your account managers post this call, but we won't be discussing anything regarding pricing, etc. today. We do have a survey at the end. Please do take the time to fill it in so we can ensure that these webinars continue to hit the mark and they are meeting your requirements. And lastly, we are recording today's session, and that will be made available to you after the webinar. So a little bit about Bytes to start off. We're part of the 2.3 billion Altron Group, global electronics group, and the global business of Bytes Technology Group is floated on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. They look after IT infrastructure, security, and licensing and software. Within the UK, the Bytes Technology Group is an £165 million business, which is comprised of two business divisions. Bytes Software Services, who look after software licensing and software asset management across a variety of infrastructure technologies such as Microsoft, Oracle, VMware, etc. And Bytes Security Partnerships, who are the security specialist wing of the business. We are a network security specialist company, so we focus both on hardware and software and associated support and services around security technologies. A little bit about us in more detail. We've been IT security specialists since 1999, and we were purchased by Bytes in 2011. And our aim is to retain the agility and specialism of that small independent reseller, which is our background, and marry that with the backing of the global software group. That allows us to give dedicated services for larger multinational customers, as well as retaining agility for smaller IT teams and companies. As I previously said, we do solely focus on security, and we're passionate not just about security technologies, but also about security awareness and education, which is why we run regular events and webinars and seminars, reviewing the market, what we're seeing out there, and how we recommend people look at future-proofing their infrastructure. Hence today's webinar. Lastly, what's something we're really proud of is our award-winning support and consultancy. We are got unique direct-to-engineer support, and that means that there is no first line, and all customers deal directly with escalation-level engineers. To give you a bit of background around what's occurring and why we're holding today's webinar. So cyber criminals are increasingly evading traditional filtering and antivirus defences. In fact, in 2014, malware was downloaded every 27 minutes, according to the latest Verizon report, and data lost from organisations every 49 minutes. The reason that we've teamed up with Websense today is that email and web do remain the most common sources of infection, and there are common patterns that cybercriminals are using to exploit weaknesses in organisations. That's the good news, essentially. There is a model to work from, which is what we'll talk about to you today. Breaking the chain, or the chain that John will talk to you in detail about later, at any point can evade data and IP loss for your organisations. So we want to share with you some strategies today and technologies to help you break that chain. So lastly, all that remains for me to do is to introduce John. He's our guest speaker from today's session with a vast amount of experience in IT security in multiple organisations and at Websense. And he'll be sharing some insight from Websense Security Labs, their global threat mapping and research team's model to aid in evading some of the data loss that can happen in your organisations. So I'm just going to hand over to John. You'll be hearing John for the rest of the webinar, and I'll pop back on for question and answers at the end. Over to John.
Thank you very much, Shona. So we're just going to change the presenter around, and hopefully my screen will appear for you now. So hello, yes, my name is John Wood. I am a sales engineer at Websense. We're going to be taking a slightly unusual look at things today. We're going to look at the field of cybersecurity with a little bit of a biblical twist. We're going to be covering the 7 deadly sins of cybersecurity. So these are obviously the kind of ancient scripture, but probably has some real day, some modern day relevance as well. So I'm going to talk about a few of the sins that our adversaries, the cyber criminal, is driven by. But I'm also going to talk about some sins that perhaps we are responsible for as well, and some of the reasons that make us vulnerable, some of the things that allow the attacker to win effectively. So I'm going to start off with our attackers, our foe. What motivates the bad guy, if you like, and I'm using a very generic term there, bad guy, because normally when we think about cybersecurity, we're talking about an external attacker. We're talking about someone on the outside who tries to break into your network, who tries to host malware, tries to deliver phishing and spear phishing attacks against you to compromise your infrastructure and compromise your network. And that type of attacker, that external attacker, is driven by our first sin of the day. And of course, it's envy, a desire to deprive other men of theirs. In other words, you've got something sensitive. You've got something that other people want. Other people desire it, and that is your data. It is very valuable. Traditionally, when we think of data, we always used to think of things like financial data and that type of stuff. Credit card numbers, for example, very common traditional source of a data breach. But actually, almost all organizations have valuable data in some way. It might be intellectual property. Perhaps you are creators, perhaps you build things, perhaps you have documentation like design documents or source code if you work in the IT industry. But actually, this also is an umbrella that you tend to describe things like employee records, customer data. This is all data that is valuable to you, that gives you leverage in your field, but data that, if you were to lose it, would negatively impact your business. So by losing employee records, customer data, you may find yourself in regulatory or legal problems. You certainly may suffer from reputational damage. If you lose intellectual property to someone who would benefit from it, then that can be very, very damaging indeed for your business. So attackers would like to get access to your data because that data has monetary value in their eyes. Even if the attacker is not a competitor, the attacker will be able to make money by selling what he has obtained to the highest bidder, to the person who wants to buy it. And in a lot of circumstances, these attackers make a great deal of money. They are, don't be under any illusion, we're talking about a cybersecurity industry. We're talking about criminal organizations that profit, that make a business out of attacking people and taking their data. So the first bit of advice here is think about your data. If you aren't already thinking about the sort of data that you have in your organization that others desire, others are envious of you for, consider that information, consider the data that is most sensitive to your organization. Bytes and ourselves at Websense can help do risk assessments for you if you want to help you understand where that data is and why it might be vulnerable. So that's what's certainly driving the outsider, the malicious outsider. However, most organizations, when they think about data security, when they think about losing information, they're not thinking about an outsider, they're thinking about an insider threat. In other words, someone who's already in that inner circle of your business, somebody who is already employed by your business and trusted by your organization, and given access to your data, to the data on your network and other services. So the insider, what drives that particular individual in a lot of circumstance is our second sin of the day, wrath, a love of justice perverted to revenge and spite. So this is a employee who has been spurned, angered employees that are perhaps not very happy where they are right now. And to be honest with you, if you have an organization of 10 or 20 individuals, you may think you know those individuals. If you have an organization that's larger, 100 individuals, how do you necessarily know that there's not someone in your organization that is plotting revenge against you? So those employees may wish to take revenge on your organization. They may be planning to leave your organization. Perhaps they're looking to move to a competitor. And in a lot of circumstances, when an employee leaves a business, he takes data with him. Sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes he just doesn't know that he has data in his possession. Sometimes, however, it is deliberate and it is malicious. So insider threat is the biggest area of concern for CISOs. People are most concerned about these insiders, partially because, unlike the external attacker, the insider doesn't have to break into your network. He doesn't have to go through your perimeter security solutions, your firewalls and proxies. This individual already lives on the inside. He already has access to things considered to be confidential. You can't please everyone who works for you. However, there are ways. It is possible to identify and manage areas of risk within a business. Consider certainly what people have access to. The reality, of course, is that these employees work for you for a reason. They do a job and they use data every day. So it's definitely worth thinking about the insider when you consider when you consider your adversaries. So those are two motivations, two deadly sins that affect our attacker. What are the sins, however, that affect us? When we try and protect our networks and we protect our organizations, what sins do we commit that puts us at risk? This is a sin. This is considered to be the most deadly of all the sins. This is pride, love of self perverted to hatred and contempt for one's neighbor. Perhaps the second part is not so relevant, but love of self. The picture on the right-hand side there is actually the Tower of Babylon, a tower that was built massive and way too big, simply because someone was too proud. In a modern day, what does this really mean? Well, all of us probably use social media. We communicate about ourselves on the internet. We talk about ourselves online. I'm sure people on this call have LinkedIn accounts that you put a lot of professional information on. I'm sure you use either Facebook or Twitter or perhaps some other kind of social network site. These posts, this information that we put online is invaluable intelligence to our adversary. When our attacker wants to target our business, he will be looking for intelligence. He'll be doing his homework. He'll be trying to understand as much about our business and about the employees, the people who work within that business as possible. The more information he has, the more successful his attack is going to be. Attackers use tools that actually mine social networking sites, look for employees, look for people that work for a particular business, and find out information about them. So the more information we post online, particularly about our professional lives, the more information an attacker gains that he could potentially use against us. Now, this is something that doesn't just affect IT administrators. This is something that affects the entire business. Every member of staff has a responsibility here. And I know that social networking is considered a private thing, a thing that's nothing to do with the company, really. It's something that's set up by individuals for their private use. But there is an educational message here. We need to be careful when posting professional information online. A particular example that I might use is if you work in IT, if you work in the IT team within an organization, and you post information about the sort of systems that you're familiar with. So, you know, I know how to use Oracle, or I know how to use specific technologies. That's useful information for an attacker, because in a lot of cases what you're effectively saying is that my business uses this solution, my business uses this technology. So as an IT, if you're in the IT team, pay particular attention to the type of information that you're publishing online, because that information is very, very useful to our adversary. Okay, another sin, another reason that we let the attacker, we let our adversaries into our network is related to greed. Greed is a state of restlessness of the heart, and it consists mainly of craving for power and possessions. Again, probably a little bit melodramatic there. Greed is something that helps our adversary fool us into letting them into our network. When an attacker targets an organization, he doesn't necessarily target infrastructure. He's not targeting your mail servers or your web servers or your databases directly. That's a very difficult thing to do. He has to break through physical security that's been put into place. He will target you via individuals within that organization, individuals that he already knows about, because he's done his reconnaissance, he's done his research, he understands who works for that business. And he will target individuals by using things like phishing and particularly spear phishing attacks. These are attacks, we usually see them come in via email, but actually they can come in via social media posts and other things as well. They are based on the premise of social engineering. These messages, these emails, these web posts, they make promises and they lure us to click links, follow open attachments, take other actions that gives the attacker an opportunity to get into the network. In a lot of cases, these emails by themselves are completely benign. They won't do anything when you open and look at them, but there'll be a link in that email. And it'll ask you to click that link. It'll encourage you to click that link. It will provide you with motivation to click that link. And perhaps it's our greed that makes us want to go and click that link to see if we can find advantage from doing so. So once we go through that link, the attacker then has that opportunity to compromise us. Spear phishing, in particular, utilizes intelligence that the attackers gather about us, specifically maybe things that we've posted online. If an attacker knows that we're using a particular type of system within our organization, if that system is known to send notification emails out, a case has been updated or there's a new event happening here, attackers will very commonly clone a notification. So you'd see an email, it might not even be an obvious phishing attack, it might be something that says there's a new attachment that's been raised against your case in salesforce.com, please click here to view. That link is the vital step. So in a slightly more modern sense, stepping away from the 7 deadly sins for a moment, in modern cybersecurity, we have 7 stages within what we call a cyber kill chain. This is a model that describes how attackers will commonly try to compromise our business. And the first couple of things we've already talked about. Attackers do their homework. They perform reconnaissance against an organization to find out about what that organization looks like, what its presence is on the internet, but also he looks to find out about the employees, the users within that organization that he can then target. Once he's done his reconnaissance, once he understands his target, he understands his victim, he will send a lure. And the lure is what we've just been talking about, the phishing or spear phishing email. By the way, a spear phishing email is a targeted version of a phishing email. Phishing emails are those emails that we've seen for a very long time. You know, often they're very clumsy. There are typos and spelling mistakes, and it's very easy to spot them. Sometimes they might look like a bank, but the idea is that they're sent to millions of people in the hope that maybe a fraction of those people will fall for the trick. And of course, that if one person falls for the trick, the attacker has effectively profited from that phishing campaign. A spear phishing campaign, on the other hand, is targeted very specifically at certain individuals. So you may have a spear phishing attack that's targeted against a single person. The attacker knows a lot about that person, and he is able to invest a lot of time and effort to craft a message that is going to appeal to that individual. So even if the attacker knows something personal about you, knows what football team you support, for example, the attacker can use that information in the context of a spear phish to try and convince you to click a link. You know, click here for 2 free tickets for the next home game, or something like that. Anything that's going to switch that light bulb, anything that's going to motivate that sense of greed within you, the attacker is going to be successful. Ultimately, the attacker, the spear phish is designed for the employee to open a door by clicking an email and opening a connection back to the attacker. Notice that we've gone from email security, we've gone from a message in an email to a transaction on the web. The browser is now open. We're now on a completely different protocol, and the employee is now being redirected around the internet to a site that the attacker has some level of control over. Once the employee arrives at the attacker's compromised site, the attacker can then send the next part of this chain, the exploit. An exploit kit is a suite of tools that are designed to identify and exploit vulnerabilities on the target's machine. So when that employee goes to the website that the attacker controls, the exploit kit is effectively used to probe that employee's machine, to probe the data that's being sent, and to potentially identify anything that might be vulnerable within that machine. It might be the user's operating system. Perhaps the employee has an older version of Windows, he's not up to date with his patches and his service packs. He may well have vulnerabilities on that machine. It might be a vulnerability within his browser. Perhaps he's using an old version of Internet Explorer that has vulnerabilities. More commonly, though, he might be using something that runs on top of the browser. So, for example, Adobe Flash or Java, 2 very common avenues for exploits. The exploit kit will identify something, a chink in that machine, in the armor of that machine, and will exploit that vulnerability. The idea is, effectively gets the attacker's foot in the door on the employee's machine, and the attacker can then send a payload to that employee's machine using the vulnerability that's been discovered, and execute that dropper file to essentially compromise the machine that the employee is running on. So at this point in time, the employee is now, his machine is now compromised. It now has the attacker's code running on it inside the organization. Many different things can happen at this stage. Typically, the attacker will then guide the compromise around the network. Now that the compromise is in the internal network, it's relatively easy for what we call lateral traversal. So essentially, the compromise can move from one machine to another without there being firewalls and other security features in place. In most circumstances, this step is going to be controlled by the attacker in some way. So there is some outbound communication from the attacker's malware back out to the internet to allow the attacker to control that malware and guide it in some way. Ultimately, once the attacker has got into the organization and he's found you know, he's got a good foothold. He's got escalated privileges within the network. He should have access to some sensitive information. So at that stage, it's just a case of the attacker finding that information and then extracting that information from the network, getting access to that data, and then he is able to use that data to make profit. So this is the end game. The last step there is the data theft event, getting the data out of the network so that the attacker can sell it on or use it in some way that further compromises the target. So that's the 7 stages of a cyber attack. Couple of things we might have been able to pick up on there, and these are our deadly sins. So here's our next deadly sin: sloth. For Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. Sloth essentially refers to laziness in a way, or missing opportunities. And it's a case that in almost all modern malware attacks, there are things that we can see. There are things that reveal that attack as it's in progress. Remember that when that attack goes into the organization, the attacker has to guide that attack around. Not many malware attacks are fully autonomous. In a lot of circumstances, there will be someone on the outside giving instructions to the malware on the inside to tell it what to do next. So these are opportunities that we can use to identify that the attack is in progress and take action to remediate that attack. Many APT attacks are detected and reported by security solutions in place. And one of the most famous ones, of course, was the Target attack, that Target, the business, of course, in 2013, the US retailer Target was attacked. It's very well known that the attack got into Target's network, and Target had a very up-to-date, modern attack detection solution in place. And that attack detection solution identified the attack that was taking place. It actually triggered events on that solution, and it was sending reports out, and it was creating events and all sorts of things. However, no one noticed, no one recognized the significance of those messages. The alerts went ignored, and the attack continued. And it was about a month after this that the FBI told Target that they had been attacked. So having detection solutions is an important part of understanding when an attack is taking place. But you have to make sure that you have a team that's ready to go. If you identify a compromise, they have the means and the plans in place to remediate that compromise, to close down that breach as fast as possible. And in general, when it comes to detection versus protection, protection is always preferable if possible. Having a solution that can automatically block things is always going to be preferable, but just not always realistic. Here's another modern-day example of sloth. I love this example. This is a fantastic story. You've probably heard about it in the news recently. This is actually a hole that was drilled into a reinforced concrete wall. It's almost 1 meter thick. They used a specialist type of drill was used. I mean, this is a drill that's mounted onto the wall because it has to use such a high level of tension. This was actually drilled into a company in Hatton Garden, and you can see what sort of company it is. They have safety deposit boxes. This is an attack, a physical attack, I should say, where over the Easter bank holiday, a group of criminals infiltrated this organization. They climbed down a lift shaft into the vault, and then they drilled with specialist equipment 3 holes through the wall. That's just about big enough that someone can squeeze through into the middle of the vault. And then they proceeded to spend pretty much the entirety of the Easter bank holiday weekend going through the deposit boxes and finding some specific valuables that they then extracted from that company in a wheelie bin. So this was an organization that did have an investment in security. They had an alarm system in place. The alarm system was triggered. They had a security guard on premise at the time of the attack, Apparently, the security guard did not act on the, I would imagine, extremely loud drilling noises that were going on downstairs. The police were automatically notified by the security system, but decided not to investigate further. So there's a good example of sloth right there. Something's going on, but you're missing the opportunity to take action and avert the problem. And finally, our last sin, gluttony. All I have given to my stomach has disappeared, and I have retained all the fodder that I gave to my spirit. So gluttony in a modern sense could be used to relate to data, the data within our organization. It's a reality that data can be excessively consumed within an organization. If you give people access to data, sometimes you'll find they just will access that data, and they will move that data, and they will take copies of that data. It's not quite as good as gluttony when it relates to food, but you get the idea. Sensitive information, as soon as it's made available to people within an organization, that sensitive information will become increasingly vulnerable. You can store that data on a secure file share. You can give limited access controls to individuals within the organization. As soon as someone has access to that data, you'll find that that data starts to migrate. It will be copied to a user's hard disk on their laptop so they can access that data next time easier. It will find its way to cloud services like Dropbox. It will find its way to that user's mobile device. It may even find its way to other users within the organization who are also interested in consuming that data. So what's the motive? What can we learn here? We need to control access to sensitive data, and we need to keep track of sensitive data to make sure that we are understanding where that data is going, and we can essentially identify the risk associated with that data. So, for example, a discovery feature that can identify where sensitive data is within a network will help you understand where your data is going, where it's got to, and give you the opportunity to control that data. So we talked a little bit about that 7-stage model, those 7 modern-day steps. They're not the sins. What we recognize at Websense is that these 7 stages are 7 opportunities for us to help prevent that attack from taking place. Each one of these steps can be avoided if we can only detect that it's happening and prevent it from succeeding. So in other words, our aim is to break the chain and kill the attack. By removing one of the links in that chain, the attack essentially doesn't proceed any further, and the business is protected. So we see it as being as giving us 7 opportunities to prevent that attack from happening. And with this in mind, we've created our technology specifically around the kill chain. Our Triton APX technology, APX specifically stands for Advanced Protection Across the Kill Chain. And it's a suite of solutions that allow us to target those 7 stages. We have an email solution that allows us to target the lures, the spearfishes that come in via the email channel, as well as, of course, protecting against regular types of malware on email and spam and other types of email nuisances. We have an AP web technology that helps prevent data exploits and dropper files and other types of malware coming in through the web channels, be it HTTP or, of course, the secure HTTPS protocols. And we have data security and endpoint security solutions that allow organizations to protect from the perspective of their data rather than from their perimeter. So by identifying what's sensitive within your organization, our data solution can ensure that that sensitive information is not allowed to leave the organization by any of the avenues that you can imagine it doing. That be it web or email or instant messenger, cloud services, endpoint actions such as removable media or CD burning or even offline file sharing. So this suite of technology is able to prevent those 7 stages from occurring. Behind the technology, we have a couple of tricks up our sleeve. The technology that powers us is called ACE, Advanced Classification Engine. It's a technology that analyzes traffic both in and out of the network to try and recognize whether that traffic is malicious or whether that traffic is safe. And the ACE engine relies on a number of different technologies, a suite of analytics, and a number of different technologies, both modern technologies as well as slightly more conventional technologies. So we use everything from regular signature-based anti-malware right through to advanced heuristics and sandboxing technologies to identify whether data is potentially dangerous to our organization. All of these engines talk to each other and compare notes. So for every piece of data going through, we come up with a score that recognizes, predicts how likely that data is going to be dangerous to the organization. The ACE engine sits on our customer solutions, but it's underpowered by Threat Seeker Intelligence Cloud. This is our security intelligence network. Websense is a big data company. We are dealing with massive volumes of data about what there is on the internet, and specifically what's malicious on the internet. What do we know about the attackers? Where are they? And what sort of tricks are they doing this week? And this information is distilled via our security labs team and made available in the form of real-time updates to the ACE engines that drive our products. So with a Websense solution, you're always getting the best protection as soon as it's available. So anyway, that's the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed that slightly biblical look at security and why it fails. I think there's some lessons there that we can use to help us understand the motivations, the human weaknesses, the sins that drive us to suffer security breaches. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and back to you, Shona.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks for that presentation. Gives us a really good insight into some of the weaknesses we can look at in our own organisation, as well as what cyber criminals are currently using in terms of methods to infiltrate organisations. I'd just like to invite the group to ask any questions about any of the specific technologies or strategies that were shared today, or even any of the sort of examples John's given. I'll leave a couple of minutes for questions. Please do post them via the chat box and I will pose them to John on your behalf. Okay, I haven't had any questions through yet. Equally, if anyone has any specific questions regarding Websense technologies, feel free to drop an email to us at securitysales@bytes.co.uk or pose those to your account manager. What I will do is make sure that everyone receives a recording of the presentation at the end, accompanied with a couple of useful documents which John has collated as regards the security kill chains and white papers. It just remains for me to thank everyone for their time. I appreciate you given your busy diaries. It's great that you've taken the time to join us this morning. And also just encourage everyone to take the time to fill in the short survey at the end so that we can continue to make these events relevant for you. Thank you very much, everyone, and good morning.
Thank you.